Hi guys, I'm going to show you a tutorial number 6, text portrait effect. So you can see here, this is the tutorial that I have linked in Google Classroom, and it clearly shows you all of the instructions, but if you prefer to have a video instruction where you can pause it and do it and pause it and do it, then here you go. So what I've suggested is having a portrait that shows good shadows and has clear contours, nothing blurry, and then have a poem or song lyrics ready to be copied and pasted in. So that's what I've done here. I'm going to use a photo of my son and I've looked up Frosty the Snowman. That's his favorite song, so I'm going to highlight and it says show more. Highlight it all, copy it, paste it, Control C. I'm putting it into a Google Doc, Control V. And now I have all of these spaces, so you need to get rid of these spaces so that it becomes one big paragraph, so delete space. You can see it's going to take me a bit, but you get the idea. Going down through. While I'm doing this, you could also be doing the same. You can use a poem, any song you like, something you've written yourself. Here we go. Make sure you're properly putting in your spaces, and you don't want to have it skipping every other line. You want to make sure it's all continuous. Eventually this text will become your image. You will no longer have the photograph. So once it's an entire portrait or entire paragraph, Control C to copy it or edit copy, then space, paste it in, and do that until it's all the way down. Now the instructions, I'm just going to go back and forth so you can clearly see. We're going to open Photoshop and we're going to place linked image into a 9x12 300 ppi file. So create new, width, my portrait is taller, so my width is going to be 9, and my height is going to be 12. You can adjust that if it's horizontal, and then 300 pixels per inch. Leave everything else the same, and here you go. So now you're going to go back. I'm just going to double check so you can see the instructions. We're going to place it in and make sure it fits. You want your entire portrait. Place linked. My photo is a little bit more than the face, so I am going to enlarge it. It is a good quality photograph, so if you found something from the web, make sure it's not blurred and distorted when you're doing this. Okay, so now there's another option here. You can delete the background with our quick selection tool or erase it with your eraser, or you can leave it as is. It depends on what's in your background. My background I don't mind. I actually like the way it is, but if you have a lot of clutter, you can do what I'm going to do right now. Take your quick selection tool, the fourth one down, and select everything in your background. If it has too much, take the negative and get rid of it. And then you are going to hit delete. If it says, like you see here, could not complete, that's because you need to rasterize your photograph, which we've spoken about before. Take your eraser, rasterize it, and now it will be editable. Delete. And I'm going to have you use your paint bucket tool. Choose a medium gray. If you don't see the paint bucket, click and hold. It's under the gradient tool and your paint bucket's right there. And you can put that in there as a nice clear background. I'm going to go back in my history here and put the original picture in because I prefer that. So let's go back to our instructions just to make sure we're staying. And we're up to number 4. I am going to suggest that we skip this until the end. If you can see all the way here at the end, I'm going to do it in color, and then you guys can decide if you like it to be the black and white option, which you're going to see here, or if you want to leave it as color, or you can do it as both. So that's a change since I started this. Number 5, we're going to add a Gaussian blur with a radius of 20. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. Filter, have your layer selected. Filter, blur, Gaussian blur. And it suggests 20. So that way you can see the image, but it is very blurry. You're just seeing the shapes. If it's too blurry, say you have a picture from the web or a photograph that's not very clear, you can adjust that down, but you can see I can tell what it is, but I don't see any details. I'm hitting OK. And the instructions are going to tell us to save this file as displaced Photoshop. So make sure you're putting it in your pictures. File, save as. I'm going to put it on my desktop. Displaced Photoshop document. We're going to need this later, so make sure it's in your pictures wherever that is. Okay. So now that I've saved this as displaced, I'm going to go back 1 in history, or Control Z is the same, because now I'm going to do all the other things to it, and I don't want there to be any confusion, so just to be safe, I'm going to save this original version instead of as displaced. The version without the Gaussian blur is going to be just text portrait. Save. Okay. There was something that I skipped over, and that something is to take your layer here and to make a copy of it. So here in the instructions, because I've done this about 6 times today, it says Control-Alt-J to create a new copy, or you can just drag your layer down right here. Control-Alt-J, or drag it down to your new copy. And this will be important later because we're going to be working, and if, like you were working on another project, if you mess up, you always have your original there. Alright, let's go back to our instructions. We're down to having our song or poem, and we're going to put it in with a text box, and we're going to fill the entire page. So take your T, text box, drag it over the entire portrait, and usually it fills in with whatever you've used last. I'm going to go to my Frosty lyrics. I'm going to copy them. Control C to copy. Control V to paste. It doesn't matter what color they are, but it kind of drives me nuts if it's not black. So you can see here it's all centered. I want you to left align it, and then you're going to paste them in again if you didn't fill the entire space. So when you select your entire text, if you triple click, you should be able to select your entire text, or you can go all the way to the bottom and select it. Either way. It's kind of freaky, right? Once it's selected, you're going to go over to your fonts, and you're going to choose a font that's bold, and I want you to choose about a 14 to a 16, mostly because you need to be able to have a nice font that's going to show a lot of the portrait in the background, but also a font that's not too large and you can see all the details. So between a 14 and a 16, and now that is placed in, let's see the next instructions. Alright. Okay, so now what we're going to do, with the text layer selected, we're going to go to Filter, Distort, Displace. Once we do that, it's going to bring up a menu option. We're going to agree to rasterize it, and we want to have 10 for the horizontal and for the vertical. So select your text, go to Filter, Distort, Displace. Don't convert it, use the center button, Rasterize, and we're going to leave it 10 and 10. Hit OK. It's going to bring up this window, and in a second you're going to see what's going to happen when we use our displaced. That was that blur. Double click it. Look what just happened. It curved to my face, my son's face here, so that photograph that we blurred, it used the contours of that. It's going to make it look more realistic in the end. Alright, so now that that's done, if you need, go back, let that play again, rewind the video and do it as many times as you need. Now what we're going to do, we're going to use the control click function, and we're going to click on the thumbnail in order to get the selection of our text. So over here you see it and how it's not a text layer anymore. It became an image because we displaced our other image on top of it. So you're going to use control and click on the little thumbnail, not the wording, the thumbnail, to select the words. You're selecting your font. So it should show up like this with all the little dotted lines. And what we're going to do is we have to hide this layer now that the words are selected to get to the layer underneath. And you can see in the instructions how to do that. We're going to go to Edit, Copy, Merge to take the clipping of what's underneath with the words. So Edit, Copy, Merged, and it literally will copy what's below to this copy. After that, the instructions will say to create a new document, and then we're going to be placing it in. It's copied, so it's going to remember what it is. So we're going to do File, New, and normally we would put our own measurements in here, but this is what's saved, it's what's copied, so we're just going to leave it and hit Create. And then we're going to Edit, Paste, and it literally would just paste in the selection that we did from here. So this is what we're going to end up with when you're done. On your background layer here, you're going to select a black with your paint bucket and fill it in. So the black background, fill it in, and you should see your portrait come to life. If you scroll in, your text becomes the portrait now. You can do this with anything. It can be a landscape, an object, any photograph you have. It could be a design, and all of the words with this technique would then become your image, your artwork. So what I'm going to do is a last step before I save this is to use the crop tool, and I'm going to crop in a little bit. Sometimes the text becomes a little choppy on the edges. And there's another option as well. You can leave this as color, so File, Save As. I'm going to save it as a JPEG because that's my final version. Logan Text Portrait. Save. OK. And then lastly, if you decided you want to see how it looks with black and white, add a black and white adjustment layer over top, and you can File, Save As, Black and White, Logan Text Portrait, and one or two of these will be what you hand in on Google Classroom. So it's going to look a little bit bizarre, but when you step back from it, it really will come together. So whether you like it black and white or colorful, I hope this helped and was able to get you through it. And if not, let me know in class and I will be willing to help you in any way possible. Thank you guys.